Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Carrying on with the Casey Anthony trial, and we're getting closer to the end now. So the next defence witness is Stephen Shaw. He's the other hair analyst, and they start by discussing the tests he did on hairs that were taken from living people and left in different locations under different conditions. He says there were 600 hairs collected from 15 different individuals. It was to see if he could see any post-mortem root banding. It's basically showing that post-mortem root banding can show up on hairs taken from living people. So the hair that was found in the trunk with apparent decomposition doesn't mean it came from a dead body. It could have fallen out and decomposed naturally. So we go to the report Stephen did on the 27th of January 2009. He reported on hairs and fibres that were recovered from the hair mass and the 3 pieces of duct tape. His results were that there were no hairs suitable for microscopic comparisons found on the duct tape that were also microscopically dissimilar to the head hairs recovered from the hair mass. In other words, there were Caucasian head hairs on the duct tape. All these Caucasian head hairs were consistent with the hairs found in the hair mass. Now, super confusing, but don't worry, because the state will make everything, they will clarify everything so you'll understand what's going on, because I was like, I had to rewind this a few times and I was like, am I getting this wrong? But don't worry, it will all become clear. So Stephen also recovered textile fibres. Those were preserved on glass microscope slides, but no tests were performed on these fibres. So we move on to the cross-examination. All the hairs on the tape were consistent with coming from the same person that the hair mass came from. So there we go. Why it was so confusing, I don't know. Stephen also performed tests on hairs that were left in trunks, but the defence failed to mention those, so the state has. So they go through his PowerPoint again. Pictures of hairs before and after. The first hairs that were stored indoors on a windowsill for 233 days. So there is some apparent discoloration, but there is no apparent decomposition in these hairs. The next is hair stored on the dash of a vehicle. It was parked in direct sunlight for 202 days. This experiment started in August and lasted for 6.7 months. So I think I'm supposed to put 6 to 7 months, sorry. There were no apparent decompositional changes in the hairs at all. The next is hair stored in the same vehicle but in the trunk during the same time period and for the same amount of time. Again, no apparent decompositional changes. Next are hairs stored outside in a grass area, and this area was in an area where it could receive direct sunlight. There were some changes in the hair, and he says that in a lot of the hairs that were left outdoors, a lot of the roots were missing, and it looked like there was apparent insect activity. He did find that in the hair mass that there was some roots missing. Next is a hair stored outdoors in a wooded area which was shaded for 14 days. There is some apparent decomposition at the root end but no post-mortem root banding. For it to be post-mortem root banding, there needs to be an opaque band just above the root. In this study, the root itself is decomposing. So next is hair outdoors in a grass area that did receive some direct sunlight, left out for 107 days. There is some apparent decomposition in the root, which is pointed out in the next picture. Next is hair submerged in water for 17 days. There is some considerable change in the root. The next is hairs buried in potting soil for 17 days. There is significant changes in the soft tissue of the root, but no post-mortem root banding. So, as much as I dislike hair analysis, this was quite interesting. Next is a hair removed from a cadaver, stored outside showing root banding. This shows a distinct banding. Then a hair from a cadaver stored inside a house, again showing the banding. Then a hair from a cadaver stored inside a vehicle. They show more hairs removed from cadavers that all show post-mortem root banding. So none of the hairs that he stored in a vehicle were mistaken to have post-mortem root banding. So, it's another, the defence have proven that hairs falling out can decompose, but there was no root banding. But, the cadaver hairs showed root banding, so... Redirect. The hairs tested in the trunk of the vehicle, he did not put them in garbage. The cadaver hairs were tested on in totally different conditions as to what the living hairs were stored in. The cadaver hairs were tested on in the winter. He did not replicate all the conditions of this case, and he wasn't aware of all the conditions, and he could never know how long the hair had been there for. So as much as it was interesting, yet again, it's not proven either way. So there we go. As you know, we're back with more in the next video. So until then, bye for now.